Thank you so much to everybody. Thank you so much for the Lotus team for letting us crash this event. It's an incredible venue, and it's amazing to see so many people here. So I'm João. I am the PM lead for data onboarding. Actually, not quite data onboarding. I'm the PM lead for client growth. What that means is I'm responsible for helping clients, large data clients, whether they're enterprises or research groups or other on-ramps built on the Filecoin protocol to onboard their data. And I will discuss today a little bit about how we're structured, what we do, why we're here, and hopefully get a better sense, give you a better sense of like all the work that's happening to enable large data onboarding on the Filecoin network. I am a dog guy. I'm sorry. This is my I know. This is my friend's puppy. I don't yet have a dog. I'm planning to. That's a 2023 OKR. Yeah, I negotiated carefully. I managed to get a dog picture here. I did last minute add a picture of my cat. He is dead, unfortunately. It is Halloween, so I thought that was somewhat appropriate, but that is my cat, Microwave. He did not die in a microwave, but I named him after a microwave because I thought that was cool. I wanted to call him Miko, and so I thought, well, why not? And so, yeah, rest in peace, Miko. But anyway, let's move forward. What is data onboarding? It is a new team within network growth that comprises data programs and client growth. Our teams are tasked with onboarding large amounts of data. And we are the leads here. This is me on the left, and Deep Kapoor, who is leading data programs. I'm not sure if you're here, Deep, but if you're not, there's a few people in his team here that you can talk to. Yeah, together we are responsible for driving the adoption of the Filecoin protocol with regard to the amount of data that's onboarded. And there's a lot of great faces in our team. We're so happy that we've managed to build out this team. It's going to be a really important task for 2023. There are lots of people here because we're going to onboard lots and lots and lots of data. We are setting a target for 2,000 petabytes, right? 2 exabytes of data onboarded by the end of next year, which is frankly quite insane. And so we need a lot of folks who are going to help us figure out the cryptoeconomic incentives, the tooling, the process, the interfacing with clients, if you will, like how can we establish SWAT teams of people who can go in and really onboard data, and in doing so, learn about where the gaps are with regard to product, tools, infrastructure, etc. So, what do? We support the adoption of Filecoin by providing insights, analytics, ecosystem investments, better tools, and we lead strategic initiatives that enable and accelerate data onboarding. That is, broadly speaking, the mandate for the client growth team. And of course, there is a very equivalent mandate on the data programs team. Data programs, their mission is to design, develop, and operate programs, incentive mechanisms, and tools. So as you can see, it's actually very similar. The way that you can think about it is the data onboarding team is really split into two. My team deals with like actual clients. For example, University of Berkeley. We also deal with storage providers who are onboarding data like Seal Storage that just announced the partnership with Atlas experiment in CERN. So we are actually dealing with like large entities, whereas the data programs team is more concerned with things like Slingshot that I will talk to in a little bit, and you can learn about this afternoon, that are efforts at really onboarding large amounts of public data, for example, right? Like what if we could just take the AWS Open Registry of data and just onboard it all and hopefully create a really useful foundation for data analysis in our distributed network for data scientists who want to do genomics research, Landsat data, etc. Right? So we're here to really establish product market fit and really test and do a bunch of stuff here that'll make this number go up. What you're looking at is month by month, the total amount of data, cumulative data that has been onboarded to the network. We are tantalizingly close to 300 petabytes, which is fantastic. But it's been really incredible to see the growth coming from all these great partners, whether it's there are more Web 2 native, working on very large scale scientific experiments, or whether they are Web 3 native, like Mirror and Zora and OpenSea, dealing with NFTs, for example, or even Starling Lab, which is a unique a unique partner of ours that is really leveraging the fact that there is a chain of custody on data and really leveraging the immutability aspect of the fact that, if there is data that is being onboarded that is perhaps an attack vector from, with regard to a nation state that does not want to see pictures that may be sensitive for a particular reason, we want to protect those, right? And we want to really employ the immutability and censorship resistance. And so that's an example of a client that is using Filecoin. And so really, these comprise very different use cases, whether it's cost, whether it's immutability, whether it's scale, decentralization. People come here for many different reasons. Okay, and so you saw the number go up. This is another number go up chart. This is the daily rate. So we've hit a peak of almost 4,000 tebibytes last Wednesday, which is amazing. And we really want to sustain this growth. If we want to get to the 10 pebibyte, if we want to get to 2 exabytes of data onboarded by the end of next year, that implies a growth of, we want to get to about 10 pebibytes per day. And so it's about a 0.5% daily growth rate, which is crazy. It gets to about 15% month over month. So when you get to these very, very large bases, we're really talking about extremely large numbers. Where's it all coming from? I mentioned a few clients. I also mentioned Slingshot, that's being run by the data programs team. Really an incredible effort to get people to work together within the ecosystem to onboard very large public data sets. And Evergreen is an effort to really just preserve them on the network. And so whether it's through special tooling and a deal engine that they're building, for example, to really facilitate this whole process, or whether it's through process work like E-FIL Plus, which powers this whole thing from a sort of governance perspective, our team is doing lots of things across the board. So really, we can split it into 4 main sections. We do a lot of marketing, right? It starts with education, and so we have to educate the public, whether it's with our website, whether it's with case studies. We really have to convey the value proposition of Filecoin and really showcase why we're here and why this is important. We do tooling. I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that we are building today. We do process. We facilitate the sort of interactions between actors in this network to really create mechanisms that make use of social trust and a social layer for to really expedite data onboarding. And we do insights and analytics. And so I'll talk to a few of these examples, and I'll speak to a couple of things that I think are particularly useful that we've worked on in the past year. So number 1, analytics, right? We've put a lot of emphasis in being able to track and measure what we're doing. Where is growth coming from? We are looking, for example, in the top, like how many daily active onboarders do we actually have? And of those, how much data have they onboarded in their lifetime? So it's really interesting to see the proportion of red really expand over time as people get over that sort of 100 tebibyte range, the threshold. So we're starting to see really clients accelerate their data onboarding and become legitimate, very large clients. On the bottom left, also the same thing. This is a total number of large data clients we're seeing, where a large data client could be a business, it could be an entity, but it could also be an on-ramp. So Web3.storage, which you've heard about, is an on-ramp. Estray.tech is an on-ramp. And so these sort of aggregate a lot of different users, perhaps with smaller data, and act as a really significant way for clients to leverage the utility of our network. And so overall, one thing that we're focused on doing is really increasing that proportion of red. Right on the bottom right, you'll see the left expressed as a proportion, where really we're trying to get to about 20% at least, right, of total clients having crossed that 100 tebibyte threshold. 100 tebibytes, really we see that as an appropriate threshold to say, well, this isn't peanuts anymore, right? This is like a large amount of data. You might require specialized tooling. You might require specialized resourcing, whether it's for deployed engineers working with you to identify the gaps that you may be holding you back. So really, we want to make that number go a little higher. So that's analytics, and this is also an example of a process improvement. So Kevin, who is I think in the back over there, yep. Working on improvements to the E-FIL Plus program. I won't go too deep into that. You can read about it yourself, but it's really a way of using social trust as a mechanism to accelerate data onboarding of verified deals. And the E there stands for enterprise. We all know that most of the data is actually in the hands of private entities. We need to create a better process to handle private data. And so E-FIL Plus is a really cool program that is being run. The pilot is actually has just been launched, and the goal here is to really qualify enterprise clients and accelerate their onboarding. The website. We've also worked on the website revamp. Right now, you go to filecoin.io/store, you think it's an actual store for merch. I'm not kidding. Many people think that. And so we felt like it was very important to revamp our website and really give users a better sense of what Filecoin is as a protocol, but more importantly, what are the products built on top of that protocol, right? Ultimately, it's about the ecosystem investments that are being made and the builders on the ecosystem that are helping us build better solutions to onboard data, whether those are built around a specific use case or a specific data type. It's really important that we actually help users find the right solution that is built on top of the protocol. And so this site is literally just about to go live. We're talking about DNS records back and forth. And so I believe that today it'll be live. So I'm really excited about that. Okay, what else? We also do a lot of case studies, right? Right now, we don't really have a product-driven growth loop. A growth loop refers to some mechanism by which you accelerate the virality of a product. Like, for example, Dropbox, right? I onboard data to Dropbox, and if someone wants to consume data from Dropbox, it's very easy for them to become a user, right? You say, hey, you want João's PDF? Why don't you sign up? And that's a way of really scaling user acquisition. In the absence of that, we have case studies, which are really a good way also to convey what we're doing and why this is important. And so this is an example of a case study that was done by the Filecoin Foundation for a really cool client called Generate involved in genomics, where I think it's really cool to actually showcase and tell a really meaningful story of how Filecoin really enables an entire business to exist. It could be because of cost, right? We offer comparatively much lower cost compared to, let's say, S3 Glacier. And so this is a way for startups to bootstrap their growth without being too concerned about getting crazy, $50,000 bills per month when their business model depends on vast amounts of data being onboarded and used for research. So most importantly, onboarding data to Filecoin, that's been sort of top of mind for me. It feels like a crazy sort of Rube Goldberg machine where you just have to keep doing things and transformations. And so I feel like each time someone joins my team, I lose my voice on like a 4-hour call describing how this actually works. And so a lot of the work that we're doing and that the ecosystem is focused on doing is abstracting away a lot of the complexity in onboarding data. It really should be as easy as a drag and drop, or it should be as easy as hey, here's where my data lives. It's on tape, it's on Postgres, it's on whatever, I don't care. Just make it easy for it to go from A to B, right? And so a lot of the work that we're doing is really focused on identifying what the process actually looks like for enterprises, for researchers, for individuals, and abstracting away a lot of that complexity. I'm not going to go into this because I don't have that much time, but this is an actual illustration of a few of the steps involved in actually executing a deal, right? So Lotus is crucial in this whole thing, but it's abstracting away some of it, but not all of it. You still need to be fairly technically proficient to run a Lotus node and learn really run some of the libraries that it leverages. So when it comes to data cap, right, this is a FIL Plus process. You need to get that done. It's not super easy. When it comes to extracting the data from where it's located and pre-processing it, we need to understand how data is extracted, encrypted, chunked, etc. Transformation from, the data as it is, from bytes into these Merkle trees, and then from the Merkle trees into car files, and all the stuff necessary to really derive the benefits of the Filecoin Network when it comes to these cryptographic proofs that are issued to really verify the integrity of the data. It is a two-sided marketplace, so you need some way of executing deals, whether that's sort of in the real world, IRL, right? Like you meet here, you know someone, you meet an SP, and you like figure out a way, like what are your miner IDs? Let's figure out a way of transacting. Or it could be online deals, as Lotus facilitates, where it's like, a little bit more abstracted, but people want varying degrees of control over where their data is, where it goes, and who is in charge of it. Crucially, last but not least, the transfer piece, right? I keep talking about this these days. The data is super heavy, right? When you're talking about 1 petabyte of data, it is very difficult to move that back and forth. Even with a saturated 100 gig line, you're talking about days, if not weeks, to do that. And so we are working on different ways to engage partners and storage providers themselves to improve their network configurations, to use different infrastructure, sneaker nets, to facilitate the movement of all this data. So, crucially, I see our team as a steward of the ecosystem. We are in the ecosystem team, and so our goal here is to really identify cool opportunities and really elevate them. And so these are a couple of examples of tools that have been built by the ecosystem to facilitate data onboarding. Estuary.tech, which was mentioned previously, is a really cool way of like really abstracting a lot of the complexity. It's almost a drag and drop, and it, leverages IPFS and Filecoin both together to create like a more seamless experience. Big Data Exchange is a really interesting example that you should check out that leverages the fascinating cryptoeconomic results of us heavily incentivizing network growth, which really means that in many senses, many examples, you have storage providers willing to pay for data, right, rather than the other way around. And so we're actually seeing certain data owners be paid upward of $2,000 for their data because it is so rewarding to take these verified deals, seal them, and get that 10x power on the network. Web3.storage is also, I think, the best example I find of a really, really usable product that has a very, very sort of clear sense of who their users are, what they're building, what their requirements are, and really making it super easy. So it is absurdly easy to go here, get an API key, and leverage their really clean APIs to do all the stuff that I just talked about, onboard data to Filecoin. And IPFS. And so Singularity is something that I actually mentioned at Phil Lisbon a couple of days ago. It's an example of a tool that is aimed at doing all this stuff, but for very large data sets. Again, even if you figure out how to convert files to car files, when you're talking about extremely large data sets, you still need better ways of keeping track of how these things map to car files, right? You're essentially archiving. How to build composable and modular tooling that can run either on the storage provider side or the client side and really facilitate very large-scale data ingestion for storage providers. We're also very focused on compatibility with where the data is, right? I've talked about extraction. Can we figure out ways of building out something like S3 compatibility where I can just say, hey, go check out the data. It's in a public bucket on S3. Pull that, do all the car file transformation, execute your deals with miners X through Z, and go, right? And so a lot of that is really trying to identify these really crucial components in that user journey and then figure out how to make them more seamless. So, call to action. I really urge you to engage with our data programs. There's a lot of excellent work being done in our team to help storage providers bootstrap their growth. What that means is, I didn't mention earlier, but our sort of sibling team is storage provider growth. But really, we're two sides of the same coin, right? In order to bootstrap growth of the storage providers, they need to not only have access to hardware, capital, and know-how, but they also need actual deals, right? So, two things. If you're in a group here and you have data owners that you're talking to, make sure that you talk with us to help us figure out where and how to onboard their data. And in doing so, we can also leverage programs like Slingshot and Moon Landing that are going to really help storage providers grow much faster. Because it's no use to sort of make all these investments. I spend $2 million coming up with this business. I hire people, I get my hardware, I get my collateral, And then I don't have deals, so we're working hard on that, and I encourage you to check those programs out. I know Caro will talk about these a little later in the day with Angelo. Try your new tools. There's a bunch of really cool stuff being developed. Singularity is a good example. It's at singularity.storage. You can check it out. It's all open source. And I encourage you, even if you're not using it for the end-to-end journey, if you want an easy way of basically taking a bunch of files from S3 and preparing some car files, do that. If you want to do the whole thing and integrate it with Boost and really do the whole deal management with a storage provider and do that whole thing end to end, fantastic. There's also some stuff that I think is still a little early to talk about, but there are deal engines that are there is a deal engine being built that will really help, again, abstract a lot of the deal management and deal execution side of things and make it way, way easier for storage providers to just go and be able to go and say sort of pick verified data from a bucket almost, depending on a policy that a client sets. And so we're trying to figure out how to bring everything together into a cohesive user journey. Join our data onboarding working group. We're on Slack. We have been operating over the last 6 months. Really, that's like the entire existence of the team. But as we, I think, hit our stride, as we have a team, as we've built out tools, as we've made our first launches, we really want to engage with the community. We know that there's lots of people out there building great tooling, building great documentation, figuring out how to do business development and marketing for your various respective teams and tools. So let's help each other. We are a group of people who are passionate about onboarding the world's most important information, whether it's private or not. And so really encourage you to join us here. We will be starting a monthly working group call for data onboarding. This is agnostic of whether you are a data owner or a builder. I don't care. If you care about data onboarding, join us. And that's that. Okay. Here we go. Any questions? Do we have time? Okay. Crickets. I scared you off with my weird cat joke in the beginning, didn't I? Yes.
Do you have any maps of, Two questions. You had the rate of onboarding and the size of the data sets that are being onboarded. Do you have any geographic or spatial or demographic information that indicates data is coming from where it's coming from and geographically where it's going to? And the second question, on the data lifecycle slide, there was a bump at the end that says you must keep these CIDs. Do we have any conventions in maintaining those CIDs and helping the end user keep track of that?
Oof. All right. So with regard to geography, we're working on that. There is a process that is, in my opinion, pretty cumbersome, but it's cumbersome because we want to be transparent of these LDN applications through E-FIL Plus involving applications made on GitHub. We're in control of, or not we're in control, my bad. The governance team is in control of what questions we ask in that LDN process, and we are actively engaging them to add some more metadata so that people who request data cap at least tell us not just like who they are and what their data is, but like where they're coming from and maybe what industry vertical there is. Like there's a few things that I, as like a data person, like kind of I start twitching when I'm like, I can't break this down by like basic things. And so we're working hard to get that additional information. We do have some more information about where it's going to. It is difficult and tricky to figure out where certain storage provider entities are because not everybody wants to be public about it. There's ways of triangulating their location with IPs. There's ways of looking at wallet funding. But we know that the majority right now is being stored in Asia, over 50%, with a few countries growing really quickly, namely the United States. And so what we are shooting for isn't so much like we don't want centralization. So in 2022, we want to make sure that no single region accounts for more than 40% of the total data onboarded. So we actually expect, hopefully, a pretty even distribution, although right now we're definitely over-indexed in Asia for obvious reasons. Yeah.
I I just wanted to share with you here that we have a research scientist, and his day job is studying the transactions on the chain. And I wanted to compare and contrast his sleuthing to what you guys are pulling out of it. And
Definitely.
we see hotspots emerging, and would like to get in front of that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Any options we have to really figure out location data. For me, it's one of the most fascinating things about working in Web3. It's like you're used to having like infinite dimensionality. It was like exactly where everyone's coming from and what they've done in their whole lives. We don't have that here. Jim Pick is a great person to speak to. And Shannon and Reba, I know in the room also, they've both been exploring different angles at figuring out where these storage provider entities are. Yeah, that'd be great.